Think about this for a second. When the stakes are, well, about as high as they can possibly get, and one single decision could be the difference between total success and catastrophic failure, how on earth do you prepare someone for that? We're not talking about your average day at the office here. We're talking about training leaders for the most complicated challenges imaginable. And you know what? The answer might just change how you think about expertise, period. So that leads us to the big question, right? How do you actually teach judgment when the stakes are at their absolute highest? I mean, it's one thing to teach somebody a specific skill, but it's a whole other ballgame to teach them the wisdom to know when and how to use it. What do you do when the rulebook just runs out? Okay, so to really get this, we've got to look at how things have been done for a long, long time. And for decades, the approach has been, well, it's been kind of like a tug of war between two very different and honestly incomplete ideas. So on one side, you've got this super abstract academic theory, the big why behind everything. It's great for understanding the grand scheme of things, but it can feel totally disconnected from the messy, chaotic reality on the ground. Then, on the other side, you have this really rigid, by-the-book skills training. This is the how. It's all about checklists, procedures, and doctrine. And look, it works perfectly, until it doesn't. The moment something new or unexpected pops up, this approach can leave a leader completely high and dry. And this division, it creates a huge, dangerous gap. If one way is too ivory tower and the other is too inflexible, then neither one is actually preparing a leader for the chaos of a real-world crisis. It just leaves them stuck, asking the one question that really, truly matters. But what if there was another way? An approach that could actually bridge that gap between the why and the how. Well, this is where a really fascinating concept called the fourth way enters the picture. This idea, put forward by military analyst Bruce Goodmanson, isn't about making people who are just good at taking tests or following orders. Nope, it's all about forging genuinely independent thinkers. How? It uses the Socratic method, asking tons of questions, along with historical case studies to literally train the mind how to think. And here's the absolute key. The whole point isn't to memorize answers. It's about learning how to think. It's that old saying, right? Give a person a fish, they eat for a day. Teach them how to fish, you know the rest. The idea is to create what's known as reflective practitioners, people who don't just follow the rules, but can actually think on their feet, adapt to new stuff, and learn as they go. So the process itself is this really powerful cycle. It all kicks off with questioning everything, challenging every assumption you have. Then you reflect on the problem and come up with your own solution. And this part is crucial. Only after you've committed to a plan do you get to see what actually happened in history. The final step is putting it all together, integrating what you just learned. And believe it or not, while this sounds super modern, it's actually built on centuries of wisdom. Yeah, you might be thinking this is some radical, brand new idea. But its roots, they go back thousands of years. The fourth way is really just a modern take on some truly timeless principles about how we learn. I mean, just look at this historical thread. It starts way back with Xenophon, one of Socrates' students who used dialogue to teach military strategy. Fast forward to the 18th century, you've got oppression reformer pushing for learning by doing. Then in the early 20th century, a Marine Corps general turns his schools into these vibrant debate clubs. And around the same time, the dean of Harvard Business School pioneers the case method. See the pattern? Every single one of them understood that real learning comes from wrestling with a problem, not just memorizing an answer. Okay, so it's got a great history, but the big question is, does this stuff actually work today in the 21st century? Well, to find out, the Marine Corps decided to put this whole theory to a pretty serious test. So, for 10 whole years, from 2007 to 2017, the Marine Corps University ran this thing called the Case Method Project. It was basically a real-world experiment to see if this Socratic, reflective approach could actually create better, more adaptable officers. And here's how it worked. They would basically drop students into a real historical dilemma. No checklist, no single right answer. Each student had to come up with their own solution and then defend it against their classmates. The instructor? They weren't there to lecture, they were there to guide the debate. The goal was never about guessing what really happened. It was all about strengthening the process of reasoning and decision-making. And the results? Well, they were pretty incredible. The participants showed huge jumps in critical reasoning and being able to adapt. They got way more confident dealing with fuzzy, uncertain situations. And get this, they also developed what's called professional humility, basically understanding that no plan is ever perfect, and they became way more curious. Bottom line, it worked. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, the success of this whole project suggests that maybe we need to rethink what leadership and expertise even mean. Because look, this isn't just about the military. It's a blueprint for creating those reflective practitioners in any complex field. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, an engineer, a CEO, an artist, whatever. This is for anyone who has to make those tough calls when there's no easy answer. And you know what's really profound about all this? It's a deeply humane way to learn. It treats leaders like actual moral agents, not just cogs in a machine. By making them wrestle with the real ethical weight and the human consequences of past decisions, it builds empathy, moral courage, and a real sense of integrity. Like the researcher Chandranath said, this is way more than just some alternative teaching method. It's a complete redefinition of what it means to be a professional. It's about shifting from being a master of what's already known to becoming a master of learning and adapting to the unknown. And that leaves us with one last big question. We've seen how this kind of thinking can prepare leaders for the unbelievable complexity of war. So if this way of questioning, reflecting, and learning from the past works for them, what could that same kind of thinking do for the rest of us, in our own lives and in our own careers?